Read this next sentence and pay close attention to what happens inside your head. The sky is a deep and endless blue. Okay. Did you hear a little voice narrating those words as you read them? A silent voice that sounded something like your own? For most people, the answer is a clear yes. But here is the genuinely mind-bending part. For some people, the answer is no. No voice, no narration, nothing, ever. And until pretty recently, neither group had the faintest idea the other one even existed. So in the next few minutes, I am going to show you what that voice in your head actually is, why some people do not have one at all, and what it reveals about how differently the people all around you are secretly thinking. Let me start by dismantling a belief you have almost certainly never even questioned. You have quietly assumed your entire life that everyone thinks basically the way you do. If you have a constant inner narrator, you assume everyone has one. If your thinking is silent and wordless, you assume that is just what thinking is. It feels like the safest assumption in the world because you have only ever had access to one single mind, your own. But it turns out to be wrong, and not by a little. The way people experience their own thoughts varies enormously from person to person, far more than almost anyone realized until recently. And the reason this stayed hidden for so long is beautifully simple. You cannot see inside anyone else's head, so you naturally assume it looks like yours. It mostly does not. So here is the plan. I am going to walk you through 3 things in order. First, what that inner voice actually is, and what it is quietly doing for you all day. Second, the genuinely wild fact that people's inner worlds differ dramatically, from a non-stop narrator to complete silence to thinking in pure pictures. And third, the big question everyone asks once they learn this, which is whether one way is better than the others. Let's start with the voice itself. The first thing to understand is that the voice in your head is called inner speech, and it is your brain quietly talking to itself. When you narrate your thoughts, plan out what you are going to say, count silently, or run that endless private commentary on your day, you are using inner speech. And here is the fascinating part. Your brain does this using the very same language and speech machinery it would use to talk out loud, just with the volume turned all the way down. When you talk to yourself in your head, some of the same brain regions light up, and you even very subtly, unconsciously, activate the tiny muscles involved in actual speech. It is, quite literally, talking, minus the sound. It is not some mystical separate voice. It is you speaking to you silently. There is actually a lovely origin story to this, developmentally. Watch a young child playing alone, and you will hear them narrate absolutely everything out loud, talking themselves through the entire game. No filter at all. Over time, that out loud self-talk does not disappear. It just goes underground. It sinks inward and becomes silent. And that internalized private speech is, in one leading theory, exactly where your adult inner voice came from. You literally learned to talk to yourself out loud first and then quietly took the whole conversation inside. And it is genuinely useful. Inner speech helps you plan and rehearse. It helps you hold information in mind. It is a huge part of self-control, that voice that says, do not send that text. And it is central to how you reflect on yourself and your life. Here's the example you have lived 1,000 times. Rehearsing a hard conversation before you have it, silently repeating a phone number so you do not forget it, or that running voice talking you through a tricky task step by step. All of that is inner speech, doing real work. And here is the warning, or really the reframe, that will matter in a minute. That voice, useful as it is a tool your brain uses. It is one mode of thinking. It is not the whole of thinking. And it is definitely not the only way a mind can work. In fact, a lot of your smartest thinking happens with no words at all. The instant you catch a ball out of the air, or feel that something is off about a situation before you can explain why, or just know the answer before you could possibly say how you got there. That is wordless thought doing real heavy lifting. The inner voice is loud and obvious, so we tend to mistake it for the whole show. But it is really just the narrator sitting on top of a vast amount of silent processing you never actually hear, which brings us to the part that genuinely breaks people's brains a little. The second thing is that people's inner worlds are wildly dramatically different from each other, and most of us had no idea. Let's start with the big one. Some people have little or no inner voice at all. Their thinking is largely silent, wordless. They think in concepts, in images, in feelings, in a kind of direct wordless knowing. And the words only appear when they actually need to speak or write. This is real enough that researchers have recently started giving it a name and studying whether it changes how people handle certain mental tasks. And on the completely other end, some people have an almost relentless inner narrator, a voice going more or less nonstop, all day. And for a few of them, that constant narration can tip from useful into genuinely exhausting, a mind that simply will not be quiet. On the far other side, some people describe such deep inner stillness that they find the whole idea of a chattering voice in the head a little unsettling, almost claustrophobic. Same species, same basic brain, and radically different weather inside. Most of us are somewhere in between, but the spread is enormous. And here is a detail that surprised even the researchers. When scientists actually studied this properly, by randomly beeping people throughout the day and asking them to report exactly what was in their head at that precise moment, they found that inner speech was far less constant than people assumed, even for the talkative types. People who were sure they had a nonstop voice often, when caught in the moment, had no words at all, just images or feelings or nothing in particular. We are, it turns out, not very good at knowing our own minds. I found this out the awkward way. I mentioned the whole idea to a close friend once, fully expecting them to nod along, and instead, they looked at me like I was describing actual magic. No voice, none. They had spent their entire life thinking in what they could only describe as silent concepts, and they were just as stunned that I had a little narrator chattering away in here all day long. We had known each other for years and had genuinely never once realized we were living in completely different mental houses. Neither of us could quite believe the other one was even real. And this connects to a similar discovery about mental images. Ask people to close their eyes and picture an apple. Most people see one, some faintly, some in vivid full color. But a small percentage of people see absolutely nothing, a total blank, even though they know everything about an apple. That has a name too, and the wild part is that many of these people went their entire lives assuming picture it in your head was just a figure of speech that nobody actually meant, literally. The name for that blank is aphantasia, and when it first got widely talked about online, the reaction was total chaos in the best possible way. Comment sections filled up with people realizing, live and in real time, that count sheep and picture a beach were never gentle metaphors. That other human beings were genuinely seeing things behind their closed eyes, like a private screen they themselves had never been given. And just as many people on the other side were floored to learn that anyone could not. That is exactly the situation with the inner voice. Whole groups of people living completely different inner lives, each quietly assuming everyone else was just like them. And this is genuinely why I make this channel. So a quick thing. If you love having the hidden machinery of your own mind pulled out into the light like this, take 1 second and subscribe. That is the whole point of what we do here. Okay, back to it, because here's the warning that matters most before we go on. Neither of these ways of thinking is broken, and neither one is a sign of anything being wrong. They are just different. Different, not better, not worse, which is exactly the question everyone asks next. The third thing, and the one people always want to know, is whether it is better to have a strong inner voice or a quiet one. And the honest answer is that each one comes with a trade-off. Think about what a strong inner voice gives you. It is fantastic for verbal reasoning, for talking yourself through problems step by step, for self-reflection, for rehearsing and planning in words. But that very same voice is also the engine of overthinking. It is the thing that replays the embarrassing memory at 3 a.m., the one we have talked about on this channel before. It is the narrator of your worries, the one that spins a small problem into a spiral. A loud inner voice is a powerful tool and a powerful tormentor, often at the very same time. It is honestly a strange deal when you look at it. The exact same ability that lets you plan your entire week, argue yourself into a better decision, and quietly narrate your own life into something that feels like a coherent story is also the one that keeps you wide awake at night, rehearsing conversations that are never going to happen. You cannot fully keep one without the other. The voice that comforts you and the voice that torments you are, in the end, the same voice. Now think about a quiet or absent inner voice. That person may have a calmer, less cluttered mental space, possibly less prone to that particular kind of verbal rumination. But they may lean on other strategies, images, gut feeling, direct intuition to do the work your inner voice does for you. Neither one is winning. They are just different instruments playing the same song. And if you happen to be on the loud narrator end, there is a genuinely useful thing you can do with that voice. Now that you know it is just a tool, pay attention to how you actually talk to yourself. The tone your inner voice takes, whether it is harsh and critical or patient and kind, has a real effect on how you feel and how you perform. There is even research suggesting that talking to yourself in the second person, using your own name or the word you instead of I, saying you have got this instead of I have got this, creates just enough distance to calm you down under real pressure. If you are going to have a voice narrating your life anyway, you might as well slowly train it to be a coach instead of a critic. Here's the example that makes the trade-off real. Two people solve the exact same problem and get the exact same answer. One talks themselves through it silently, word by word. The other just sort of sees the solution arrive, fully formed, with no words at all, and could not tell you the steps if you asked. Same result, completely different inner road to get there. And here is the warning, the thing I most want you to take from this. Stop assuming that other people experience their own minds the way you experience yours. The quiet friend might have a silent inner world or a deafeningly loud one you would never guess from the outside. Your partner might think in pictures while you think in words. We are all walking around certain that our own inner experience is the default, the normal one, the way minds simply are. And almost none of us are right about that. So let me pull all of this together, because it genuinely changes how you might think about thinking itself. You learned that the voice in your head is inner speech, your brain using its own language machinery to talk to itself silently, and that it does real, useful work, planning, remembering, self-control, and self-reflection. You learned that people's inner worlds are astonishingly different, from a non-stop narrator to near total silence to thinking in pure images, and that most of us never realized it because we can only ever see inside one mind, our own. And you learned that no single way is better, that a loud inner voice is both a brilliant tool and the source of your overthinking, while a quiet one trades that verbal power for a different, calmer kind of thinking. And here's the part I really want you to keep, because it is honestly a little staggering when it sinks in. You have spent your entire life locked inside one single point of view, your own, quietly assuming it was the universal one. And it never was. Every single person you have ever met, your closest friends, your family, the stranger next to you on the train, has been running a different inner world this whole time, a different texture of thought you have never had any way to see. The voice in your head, or the silence where yours is not, has always felt like just what a mind is. But it is only ever what your mind is. And realizing that, really letting it land, is one of the quickest ways I know to become a little humbler, a little more curious, and a lot more gentle with the people around you. Because you finally understand that you have genuinely never known what it is like to be them in there. There is something quietly profound in just sitting with that for a second. We spend so much of our energy assuming we understand each other, filling in all the gaps with our own experience, completely certain we know how the person across the table is thinking. And the truth is, we have never once actually been inside another mind, not for a single second of our lives. The most ordinary act imaginable, another person simply thinking a thought, is something you are never going to get to witness directly, which honestly makes it kind of miraculous that we manage to understand each other as well as we do at all. So this week, do one genuinely fascinating thing. Ask the people closest to you what their inner experience is actually like. Do you have a voice in your head? Is it always talking? Can you picture things? And how clearly? I promise you the answers will surprise you, and some of them might quietly blow your mind. Because you will discover that people you have known for years have been living in a completely different inner world than the one you assumed. It is honestly one of my favorite conversations to have. Almost every single time, someone at the table discovers something about a person they were sure they knew completely. The partner who has been silently picturing everything in vivid, full color. The friend whose mind is, in their own words, basically just quiet. You get to watch people realize, live, that the inside of a human head is far stranger and more varied than any of us was ever taught in school. And somehow it makes everybody a little kinder for the rest of the night. So tell me down in the comments, because I am genuinely intensely curious how this splits. When you read that first sentence at the very start of this video, did you hear a voice or was it silent? Do you have a constant narrator, an occasional one, or basically none at all? And can you actually picture that apple vividly, faintly, or not at all? Tell me below and go read a few other people's answers, because the range is going to be incredible. And if you want another one of these strange truths about the mind you have been living inside this whole time, go watch the one on why your brain ambushes you with embarrassing memories at 3 a.m. Because for a lot of you, that is your inner voice, caught red-handed in the act. I'll see you over there, whatever it sounds like in your head.